So in lesson 4.2, you are revisiting transformations from chapter 3. So the idea of moving left, right, up, and down, doing rotations and reflections will be revisited in this chapter, but with exponential functions instead of our parabolas and square root functions from the previous chapter. So the first few problems, you're being asked to revisit the square root function and trying to decide of the equations which one will move the parent function, which starts at 0, 0, to its new location, which is the dashed graph. Think about in terms of the placement of the 3. When it's inside the function, does that move it left, right, or does that move it up and down? And if I put the addition or subtraction problem outside of the function, same thing. So move it up, down, or right or left. Try to see if you can do this in the fewest number of guesses. Ultimately, you want to try to figure out what the rule was again if you forgot before you're done with all the problems in this activity. When you get to page 4, which is the investigation, you are looking at moving the b value and for the function y is equal to 2 to the x power plus b, and seeing how moving the slider impacts the graph. Because you understand that the function, whether it's a growth function or a decay function for exponential, always goes through 0, 1. So try to figure out. And then there's a couple of questions here that needs to be answered. You don't need to answer them in the decimals activity. You can answer them on your own paper. So I'm not collecting the answers. In screen 5, you're basically taking what you have hopefully learned from screen 4 and applying it. Make sure that the only numbers you replace are just the question marks. So you just highlight the question mark and then replace it with the number you believe is going to take the graph and move it to its new location. If you're incorrect or you're struggling with it, go back to the original sketch and see if you can figure out what's going on. And if you're if you were in class, hopefully it's something you had an opportunity to ask questions about. If not, and you still can't figure it out, send me a message through It's Learning and I'll respond to it. In the next set of problems, we're revisiting the idea of sliding left and right. So hopefully, based on the equations from the first 2 screens, you'll have a better chance of getting these right if you missed the first 2. But again, you're trying to translate left, right, so which of these 4 functions would be the best choice. Same thing for this one here. We're moving to the left from the parent function at 0, 0, and again, which one would be the best choice. Again, you're going to apply that same idea. Different than the square root function where the x is underneath the square root. With a exponential, the x is with the exponent, and so you're moving the c slider to see how the graph is changed. I'm going to kind of demonstrate this. The one thing you need to understand is that the point that's actually moving is the 0, 1 point, and it's the one that's being slid left and right. So we're kind of used to at this point. The points are being slid left and right based on the point being on the x-axis. In the exponential, it's actually the 0, 1 point, because the graph itself never touches the x-axis unless you slide it down, and then the graph will go through the x-axis, but the parent function never touches the x-axis. Once you're finished trying to figure out how the c value impacts the graph, then you're being asked to figure out these 2 equations. Again, the only numbers you need to be changing are the question marks, so don't change anything else in the equation. And you're trying to match up with the purple and the red graphs. When you get to the last 3 screens, you're being asked to do both movements. And so that means you're going to place in a number inside the parentheses with the x and then outside the function. So make sure, again, you're only replacing the question marks. My suggestion here in trying to figure out the numbers is think of slope, rise and run. So if I start here at 0, 1, the run value would be 4 and the rise would be 3. So think of those 2 numbers as the critical numbers in helping you determine what numbers go in place of the question marks. If you struggle with the first one, that's fine. You have two more problems very similar to it, and hopefully by the third problem you'll have an idea of how you can use slope to figure out those two numbers. This activity will be scored in the grade book, so please make sure that it's completed. And again, if you have any questions, let me know.